And so there I was, researching about Ducati, and then I was like, right, I know about Benelli, Vespa, Piaggio, Aprilia, and I thought, what other Italian brands are there? And after googling it, I saw this. You know, I'm very hard to impress, but this bike managed to lock me into a wormhole of information about MV Agusta. Remember when I said Ducati started out by making electronic capacitors for radios? Well, many years before that, Count Giovanni Agusta was way ahead in production value. In 1907, 4 years after the Wright brothers conquered the skies, Count Agusta built his own glider biplane. Bearing in mind that these are still the primordial stages of aircraft development, despite that, the world was on the advent of war, making Count Agusta's knowledge extremely valuable, something recognized in 1913 by the Caproni Company, one of the greats in Italy's aeronautical industry. A decade later, Costruzione Aeronautica Giovanni Agusta was founded in northern Italy, where focus was still on the maintenance and repair of military aircraft. To this day, the name Agusta is still flown by armed forces around the globe, but I know you know of at least one of their civil helicopters. Yep, that's an Agusta 109 in Jurassic Park's famous scene, Arrival at Isla Nublar.
Right.
The Agusta bikes, however, wouldn't come for almost 20 years after the passing of Count Giovanni in 1927. It was under the management of his son, Count Domenico, that the company had to be saved from the crisis that ensued from the Second World War. Following the ban on Italy's aircraft manufacturing, the company was renamed Meccanica Verghera, hence the name MV Agusta, and Count Domenico pivoted its business plan from flying machines to his deep-rooted passion for motorcycles and racing. Their first bike, the MV98, was launched in 1945, and it was originally going to be called the Vespa, but it couldn't, and I wonder why. Racing success came soon after in 1946, when 3 MV98s finished in the podium in an endurance race at Monza. Afterwards, the brand followed the trend of increasing engine displacement to challenge its competitors in the newly baptized Road Racing World Championship Grand Prix in 1949, the precursor to the current MotoGP. And following a few years of R&D and constant improvements to the MV125, the bike took the Isle of Man TT victory in 1952, as well as that year's championship in the 125 class, the first in MV Agusta's history. Although the company had a few victories here and there, in the top class of 500cc's, the golden years would start only in 1956, when Sir John Surtees signed with MV Agusta and won the championship in that same year. The 1957 title was won by another brand called Gilera, this being their 6th championship victory. But despite that, the ever-increasing costs of Grand Prix racing led this and a few other constructors to withdraw from the following championship. At that time, Count Domenico couldn't even fathom how fortunate he was going to be after his hesitant decision to continue to partake in Grand Prix racing. Because from 1958 to 74, MV Agusta won 17 consecutive championships with their legendary riders: John Surtees, Gary Hawking, Mike Hailwood, Phil Reed, and the most successful MotoGP rider of all time, with 8 titles in total, 7 of which won back-to-back with MV Agusta, Giacomo Agostini. After years of financial turmoil, closure in 1980, reopening in 92, and yet more financial plot twists, the brand can now have a much-needed fresh start under the management of the Sardarov family, with the support of KTM in supply chain and distribution networks. And yes, this was always and still is an exclusive and relatively expensive brand. But let's not forget that MV Agusta is so much more than 2 wheels, a frame, and an engine. If you're one of the lucky ones to own an MV Agusta, you're owning a remarkable piece of history and heritage. It's one of those belongings that you pridefully share stories of with your grandchildren and your peers, perpetuating the legend of one of the most successful racing icons of all time. And if you ask me, if I ever own one, I would bring it into my home after a long day's work and put it on display, just to be able to look at it and reminisce about the stories I read when researching for this video. Because through its ups and downs, the MV Agusta never lost its essence. Passionate and high-performance motorcycle art.
Do you feel cold?